Hello and welcome to the Tracie Austin Show, where we bring you the truth about the paranormal, the supernatural, and the highly strange. Without further delay, your host, Tracie Austin.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the show today. I'm glad that you could be here because we have an excellent show planned for you. We're going to be talking about these mysterious bodies that have been found in Peru that clearly show 3 fingers and 3 toes. But first, if you've not yet subscribed to us on our YouTube channel, we would love for you to subscribe and follow what we do. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and now you can also join us on our Patreon page as well and to subscribe to us there. So let's get back to the show here today of these 3-fingered bodies that have been found in Peru. Recently there was a story that had broke all the way across the internet of footage and photographs of these very strange bodies that clearly showed 3 fingers and 3 toes on these beings. And it gained a lot of attention on the internet, and I'm sure you've heard of it by now. Steve Mera and Barry Fitzgerald, who are my guests today, joining me all the way from the UK on Skype, my home country, traveled out to Peru to find out more about what these bodies were all about. It was a long trip, and they uncovered a lot of information. And I want you to take a look at this video here of them starting their journey from Manchester Airport right out to Peru.
Just over a 2-week period, both Steve Mera and myself, Barry Fitzgerald, travelled enough miles to take us completely around this planet, and then some, in an attempt to find answers, scientific answers to finally solve that age-old question if we are truly alone in this universe. The results are in, and this is our story.
In June 2017, the internet exploded with images and video of a mysterious mummy discovered in South America. It has become known as the 3-fingered hybrid. But what do we really know about this discovery? My name's Steve Mera, and I'm an investigative researcher based here in the UK. Join me and my cameraman and fellow researcher Barry Fitzgerald as we travel to the Southern Hemisphere and uncover the mysteries surrounding this discovery, securing much more information and interviewing the people that bore this explosive find. Against all odds, we must navigate our way to a secret location to view the body. Amidst government attempts to seize the evidence and capture those involved. This is our journey, and we'll be keeping you up to date every step of the way.
Now, Steve Mera is actually an investigative researcher for 34 years of his life. He's a Bachelor of Science, and he's also the CEO of Phenomena magazine. Occasionally I submit articles and write for them at their magazine. And Barry Fitzgerald, who is Irish born, has been an investigator for over 30 years with the supernatural, and is probably best known for his work on the popular TV series of Ghost Hunters International. So let's head over and talk with Steve and Barry and find out more about these mysterious bodies. Welcome, Steve Mera and Barry Fitzgerald, to the show today. How are you guys?
Wonderful. Thank you for having us, Tracie.
Oh, it's
Good at this end.
It's an absolute pleasure. Hey, you know, this story, as we know, exploded on the internet. Of these three-fingered, three-toed mummies that have shown up in Peru. You guys made this trip out to Peru back in July. And by the way, I have to say to you guys, before we get into this, great documentary that you guys put out there. That was...
Thank you. Yeah, it was challenging.
Our viewers know of that link that they can watch that shortly. But let's fill our audience in on how this all happened for you, because these photographs of these beings or these bodies landed on your desk back in April so that you could, in the hope that you could identify what these were. And it was, you couldn't really discern what they were, so you decided to make the trip out to Peru on July 5th. And basically it was a 3-hour flight from Manchester Airport to Madrid. You then made a 12-hour flight from Lima to Peru, and then a 90-minute flight from Lima to Cusco.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a hair-raising trip. Of course, when we left Manchester, we had a bit of a scare at Manchester International Airport. A suspicious package had been left, and of course they'd evacuated the airport. So when we got there, we immediately hit thousands of people in queues, and we thought we weren't going to actually get on our plane. We almost didn't get on it, actually. I mean, we had to scratch and fight our way up front with all the equipment, and then we had to run like 15 or 20 minutes with all this equipment just to get on the plane. Of course, then we flew out to Madrid. It was lovely. It was very hot there at Madrid, and then of course the long haul flight across to Peru. We landed in Lima, which is the capital, and then we had a small flight of 90 minutes up to Cusco. And I say up to Cusco because when we got there at 11,000 feet, we were suddenly hit with the lack of oxygen in the air, and that we really noticed very quickly, because we were struggling a little bit, and that progressed into altitude sickness and nausea and headaches.
Right, as it would.
It wasn't good. We were challenged with having to deal with the altitude sickness and vomiting, unfortunately, as well as trying to get all this done. And we had no time to spare, because as soon as we got from the airport, we went straight to the hotel, and literally within the hour, we had to get changed and interview a number of people that have been responsible. Now, as you said, Tracie, this came to our light when we received photographs and asked for our assistance in identification. Now, the reason probably because we've dealt with similar cases like this before, and most of the time we find rational explanations. If it isn't hairless raccoons washed up on Montauk Beach, being told that there's some type of strange monster, if it's not skinless, tailless monkeys caught in traps, being called aliens these days, all sorts of things. And of course, most of the time, we do rationalise long before we have to, we won't have to spend too much time on this. Normally, we'd be able to conclude it quite quickly. However, when we got the photographs that came through of these bodies, it took some time to try and work out exactly what we're looking at. And we went over and over and over, and we didn't get to stage 2. I mean, normally, you normally get to conclude it before that, and we couldn't. The only way we realised that we were going to be able to find out or conclude what these might be is that we're going to have to physically see them.
Right.
We're going to have to talk to the people that are involved in this.
Of course.
And that is when a decision was made. I picked up the phone, and I couldn't think of a better person than Barry. Barry's been, in the field of this type of research. He's also done tomb analysis. He's done ancient sites around the world. He was the perfect guy to take with me to Peru.
Right, and Barry was going to film it.
Barry did, yeah.
Barry filmed it all.
What is different about the documentary is that it is very raw. It is what it is. I mean, Barry just simply picks up the camera and puts it on me, and I try and explain what the hell's going on. And of course, there was no scripting, there was no storyboard. It was just as it happened.
Right.
And each and every day as it unfolded. We also did video bulletins as well, because we were aware. We did some research. We knew what Peru was like. Barry had been to Peru a number of times before. That came with warning signals, because we knew that there's a huge amount of poverty in Peru, and there's a lot of corruption in Peru, and we've got to be very careful no matter where we're going. We've got equipment, we've got money, we've got to be careful.
Right. You guys had to have been guarded, though, because if this would have been a hoax.
Yeah.
So you were guarded in case it was something like that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we were going to call it a hoax. I mean, in fact, we pretty much thought it might be. I mean, we just wanted the evidence, because in our form of training, we prove the negatives. We don't fall on an assumption. I mean, there's lots of information that people are scavenging over the internet, and there's so many inconsistencies in reports and what people are saying, and beliefs get thrown into it. The only true way is to talk to the people involved. And be there and hopefully examine these bodies. It was a completely off chance that we might be able to get to see them.
Right.
And certainly Barry will sort of explain to you how that certainly came about, with a little bit of luck, actually.
Right. Okay. Well, Barry, what was your thought on this when Steve, decided that, hey, we need to go over and check these bodies out? What was your thoughts on it?
Well, me personally, I love Peru. I have a soft spot for it. We were there filming several times. I think it was 3 or 4 times we were filming in Peru before with the Ghost Hunters International. And when he phoned and said, absolutely no problem, let's go and do it. But there was a pet hate of mine in that we wanted to show the country for what we were going through, what was happening, what we were experiencing as we were traveling, because that was something that I found in other shows that were involved with this that was lacking.
Right.
You actually get to see what the investigators went through to get to that particular point. And that's why we filmed that fly on the wall style and went with it. And people traveled with us, and they began to see what was happening.
Right. And I have to say to our audience, we're going to give you the link of the documentary. If you haven't already seen it, it's put together so well and so detailed. We're going to give that to you in the show here a little bit later. But you had a strange encounter, Steve, when you were leaving the airport to actually go to Cusco. There was a strange guy that came up to you, thought that you were actually Barry, and told you cannot talk about this, of why you were going over to Peru. Tell us about that.
Yeah, they got our names switched around, but I was talking openly to Barry, and as we have done on the trip, on the way there, things going on in our heads, trying to work out what's going to be our agenda, how we're going to get everything in and do what we do in the short time we're there. And of course, we were talking openly about the investigation and the bodies, and of course, when we were approached, we were immediately just told, don't talk about what you're talking about, keep quiet, don't communicate over your phone. Apparently, it was quite well known that the Peruvian government were apparently all over this thing. We didn't know. We knew that they may have been interested in trying to locate, whatever's been going on, but we didn't realise how thorough the government were actually being. And they were completely locking down on all sorts of things. They'd done numerous raids across different buildings to try and find these bodies. They were looking for anybody coming into the country which might have some association or might have something to do with the investigation of these bodies. And of course, talking openly, we were warned not to. And of course, I was quite taken back there, and I didn't expect it. And I said to Barry, seriously, we're going to have to really be careful now, because it made us a little bit paranoid, because were people always, could have been just in our heads, but there were people kind of listening and watching and walking by on their phones, and you get a bit paranoid, to be honest.
Of course. Well, I love that little section on your documentary that Barry was filming of you talking, sitting there on the seat of the plane. You totally dumbfounded that, oh my God, I'm so shocked, this has just happened to me. I love that little bit there, that little section.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in many investigations over 34 years. Barry himself has, and this is, we both will completely agree that this has been something completely different, because we were stuck right in the middle between the Inkari Institute, which had at some stage had these bodies delivered to them by the discoverers, which turned out to be no more than tomb raiders, and of course an illegal act had taken place there, and between them and the government, because the government were trying to find out where they were, and of course we were tingily trying to work out how best to approach this without actually supporting either side, but without actually being caught up in the middle of this, because it was a bit of hair raising. Right.
So these tomb raiders came into the Inkari Institute in beautiful Cusco, and basically that facility is actually an archaeological investigations facility, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with UFOs or anything like that.
No, Barry will explain a little bit about that, because we did interview them quite in length.
Right.
Yeah, the guys themselves are responsible for archaeological discoveries within the Peruvian Amazon, and they have been finding remains, archaeological remains supporting the Aztec civilization within the jungle, within that particular area. They also were responsible for finding a series of hieroglyphs or petroglyphs on one of the artifacts, one of the archaeological finds within the jungle, which in itself was taken by the government, and they were acknowledged that they had found this, and was utilized and placed on a series of coins specially produced by the government, showing these particular petroglyphs, and the Inkari Institute was recognized as being the finders of this. By no means were the Inkari Institute, according to the Inkari Institute, by no means were they responsible for anything to do with UFOs. They themselves were simply out to find this ancient knowledge, the ancient aspects of the Peruvian archaeology.
Okay, so as we understand it, two sarcophagi were found with 20 bodies. 20 bodies, small bodies, and then there was one larger body that was later termed Mera. It was called Mera, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But these bodies were taken to the Inkari Institute and literally dumped on the counter. They wanted Inkari Institute to find out what they were, and then these tomb raiders would come back to collect the bodies. So talk us through, Steve, what these bodies actually look like.
I think it's important to let you know how we actually even managed to get to see the bodies, because we didn't expect to. And we went out there hopeful. Yeah. But the most important thing for us was to document and thoroughly interview, as raw as we possibly can, the people that have been involved, first-hand knowledge, to be given some photographs and scans and x-rays. However, the following day, after we conducted all the interviews with the Inkari Institute, at our hotel and at the Inkari Institute itself, at 2:14, I remember it exactly, 2:14 a.m. my cell phone rang. Now I'm in a hotel in Cusco, Peru. I don't expect my mobile phone to ring, and of course it does, and I don't recognize the number. And on there's a gentleman who doesn't speak much English. He's definitely from Peru. Right. I can gather that very quickly, and it was very abrupt and very quick about the opportunity to be able to see some things. He didn't say body, just said the opportunity to see some things. And of course, I immediately thought, we might get to see the bodies.
It was like Christmas Day.
I was ecstatic. I mean, to be able to do that on top of what we've already got, that'd be incredible. At this time, we only know of two sources that have been involved, and that was Gaia from Gaia TV and Jaime Massal and his team. And I thought, well, to have that opportunity, a third party, that'd be fantastic. So I was kind of hoping that's what they were referring to. But it came with conditions. And those conditions were that we were to be picked up that day, later on in the day, at 4:00 in the afternoon from the hotel. The gentleman who would be picking us up will ask for us by name. We're not allowed to identify the guy. We're not allowed to identify the vehicle. We're not allowed to identify where we're going. So we weren't really. I said, well, what about filming? They said, well, no, we're not allowing any filming. And I said, oh, okay. And they said, and the main one was, we weren't allowed to take our cell phones. And
that's
I just
scary.
I didn't even think, Tracy. I just said, yeah okay, let's do it. And of course it was arranged. And then Barry looked over at me and he said, what have you just agreed to? And I said, and then it suddenly dawned on me what I'd just done. And he's shaking his head, thinking, oh no, you know. And, but we planned. We didn't take. We made sure we didn't take too much money with us. The camera equipment was insured. We did take the camera stuff with us. He did turn up. We didn't identify the guy nor the vehicle, and we pressed on out of Cusco. I think we were going somewhere local, and we weren't. And it was going on and on and on. And nearly about an hour later, we were up on top of the mountains. We started off at 11,000 feet. We're at 14 or 14,500 feet. Mm-hmm. I'm really struggling to breathe, to be honest with you. There was literally, I went through my head, why didn't you blindfold us or something, if we're going to a secret location? And the reason being, I suddenly realised the reasons why is because all the roads up there are just dirt paths. There's no signs, and it's a left and a right and a right and a left. And honestly, there was us, the sky, and the condors.
The middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere.
Right.
Now, we stopped the car and we asked to do filming of condors, which we did because we thought it'd be great to get them on film. And at that point, I remember looking around, and as far as my eye could see, there was nobody in existence apart from us.
Wow. Yep. Hold it right there, guys. We're just going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. The Tracie Austin Show would like to thank our sponsor, Zohar Stargate TV. And for more information about our sponsor, please visit zoharstargate.com. Okay, so we're back after the break here. And so you're on this mountain. You don't know where you are. And I remember in the documentary you were wearing a watch, Steve. Thank God for the watch.
I did. I had a special watch which recorded, and I had it on, and I thought, right, well, that's my safeguard. I left it. I just kept it running. Well, to be honest with you, you forget it's on your hand. So basically, all you're filming is the car seat, or you're moving around. You don't realise how much you move your arms around when you're filming. And it just completely lost. Completely went out of my head with all that's going on.
You forgot for a moment you were like James Bond with your special watch.
It was just safety precautions because we had to. We were doing a video log daily and putting it out to let people know where we were and what we were doing, just in case. We didn't know what was going to happen. Right. And we managed to argue the point that we did a little bit of filming in the car, and at some point I think Barry was talking to me and we were doing some filming, and the guy just went like this. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to cut me throat or turn the cameras off. So we just said, turn the cameras off quick, Barry. And we did. And I was expecting only to be round the corner from this location. Turned out not to be. It was at least another 15 minutes away. And then we pulled outside that location. And thank God Barry had a bag of sweets with him. I'm sure he'll explain to you what this location was like.
Right.
The place in itself, it was just like a run-down warehouse. And as Steve says, the sweets, they really do go a long way, and they really did work. But I got to tell you, Tracy, when we got out of the cab and we ended up going into this building, which there was really nothing in, but we ended up going into this room, and my heart suddenly sank, and my fight or flight began to activate, as if it wasn't bad enough as it was at the moment. But seeing these guys stand in full surgical dress, you suddenly began to consider your own internal organs and where they were about to just be taken from.
I can imagine. And you guys had to dress in surgical outfits as well in order to be in the room.
That's right. Yeah, we ended up having to dress the same as these other guys. Thankfully, that's what it all turned out to be. So after the nerves started to settle down and a few round of sweets had gone around the room.
By sweets, folks, he means candy. Okay,
candy.
That's our British term for candy, sweets.
When
Had to clear that up.
when the nerves had settled, that's whenever we were introduced to these bodies.
Yeah.
And it was a really great experience.
Right. Now, these bodies have been carbon dated to be between 245 and 410 AD. Is that correct?
On the largest body, Mera, she had 2 independent carbon-14 testing. It's been carried out, which both correlate to be the same age, about 1,800 years of age.
Right. So, do you think, Steve, this is some kind of disclosure that's going on here?
I don't think it's some type of disclosure. I think what's basically happening is that the guys that were the tomb raiders, see, the problematic is that there's so much confusion over the internet and different stories. A lot of people are lumping all these discoveries together, but when actually do your research, the smaller bodies were located and discovered around about the latter part of 2015, crept into 2016. Mera, which is an actual body, a full-size body, 5'6", and a smaller one which is considered to be a childlike, weren't discovered till around about, they didn't turn up on the scene until April 2017. But they've been put all into this same category as a single discovery. And it would seem that the significant differences between what we're dealing with Mera and these smaller bodies, even though that we were there to investigate all and argued the point of filming, the necessity of filming, and that came with an arrangement that, you know, all the other guys had to stand behind the camera.
Right.
If we caught on the film, that would have been the end of it all.
Right.
But,
right.
Definitely.
And we'll talk about Mera in a little bit. We'll come back to Mera. But let me ask you, Barry, how do you feel the press has handled all of this?
Well, what we were seeing, Tracie, is that there was a lockdown on the press within Peru, and there was a move. There was a move to really keep this quiet, to keep it under wraps, and even the major press conference that was being organised in Lima several days later, no one in Lima seemed to know what on earth was going on. Now, the other problem that we have then is the Western press, is that they're using one particular website for a source, and it's being repeated time and time and time and time again, and that is not correct. That particular website is not correct, that they're sourcing their opinions on.
Okay.
And we're finding these discrepancies, and there was a grave problem coming out from the press, and that was a secondary reason why we decided to go out as well, because we wanted to make sure that we told the English-speaking countries what was actually happening, because we were losing out with the Spanish.
Right.
So we wanted to get those details out. But going out there was already claims of across the internet of these bodies being covered in white plaster and openly fake and everything else.
Right.
And not only that, but we also had the back of the government weighing down on us, also claiming that these were fake, even though they had never ever seen them in person,
right,
or even touched them.
Right. And I just want to show here a video of Steve talking to camera while Barry's filming it after just having a meeting at the Inkari Institute.
Well, what can I say? I mean, tonight has just been a mind-blowing session of interviews with these guys from the Inkari Institute, and to be honest with you, you know, I really do feel for them, because it does seem that they really are being placed right in the middle of this, between a discovery. It's literally, as you heard them say, just turn up here and drop these damn bodies on their counter. I said, hey guys, you know, you deal with it, you know, and at the same time they're trying to figure out, you know, how are we going to deal with this? We've got to deal with the government, we've got to deal with the press. It is a monstrous, absolute monstrous task that befell them. Now, what's really interesting is that the fact is that they've already stated that some of these bodies have been seen to be doctored, and that's wonderful, because the sincerity coming from these guys, that they're trying to find the truth, they're trying to figure out, is there anything unusual about these things, especially the latest, which is confirmed. It's not a mummy, it is a body. This latest body has been discovered, which we're referring to as Mera. Now, some analysis have been taking place. We asked the questions that it's covered in white. What is it? Is it some type of plaster? They don't know. That means that's telling me they've not seen this before on other bodies, which makes it quite unique. But nevertheless, though, they're waiting on information. DNA has been taken from the bodies. DNA has been taken from the hands. We've talked about the bones. We've talked about the feet. We're looking at the anatomy of this thing. What is it? Is it, as they say, could this possibly be a new type of species? We just don't know. We're waiting on this information coming back, and that'll determine exactly what this thing is. In the meantime, these guys are in the middle of a storm, a media storm throughout the whole internet, and there's also things going on in the background as well. There seems to be like a group of individuals from around the world that purchase such items like this from those that discover them, and of course what they've said right from the beginning is they've always wanted to make sure that they keep these things in Peru. So anybody out there who's going to be asking these questions, I suggest travel halfway around the world like we have and talk to these guys face to face, because they have a story to tell, and this story could be potentially one of the biggest ever as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so we just saw you talking to camera there, Steve. Barry's filming it. Barry mentioned the fact that there was a white substance covered over these bodies, and nobody knew what this white powder was. I actually thought, when I viewed it, that I thought it was calcification. But it's not calcification. It was just an idea I had. But it turns out to be a diatomaceous soil.
It's diatomaceous earth.
Okay.
Barry's pretty much equipped with all the information on diatomaceous. We've even looked around at different locations in Nazca. Do you want to just explain what that is, Barry?
Sure, yeah. That particular earth forms from the old seashells and crustaceans over millions of years. Now, Peru, people must understand that in Peru wasn't always above the ocean. Millions of years ago, it was a seabed, and it was pushed up. The two great plates that form the Andes Mountains lifted that particular continent up out of the water. So those seashells and crustaceans obviously then settled, and over the course of time created this powdery substance, which in itself can be used as a preservative.
Right.
And when even if you use it in a diluted form, and spray it on something like say for instance an ant, then what tends to happen is that you get this what does they call it now? The jerky type of effect with the internal organs of the ant. It breaks its way through the outer skeletal structure of the ant and creates this toughness within the internal organs, and they mummify almost.
Okay, and it acts also as an insect repellent, doesn't it? And right, insect repellent. It dehydrates and preserves tissue.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Because there were some speculations that these were fakes. They were plaster of Paris fakes, but that's not the case, is it?
No, there's no plaster. There's no plaster involved. In fact, I mean, I can understand. First seeing these things, it looks like. I mean, to be honest, they've been purposely. These aren't just been sat in this type of stuff. It's been applied to the bodies. It's been purposely applied to the bodies. So whoever did that, it may be a good reason that they realised it had preservative. It preserved the body, and that was the reason maybe why they did this. But on looking at it, it was initially thought to be plaster of Paris, but through analysis it turns out to be diatomaceous earth. And of course, being told it was in Nazca, and the fact that we were also told there was a high magnetic anomalies in the area of the location, which is said to be a tomb, then we could work out pretty much through surveys and geological software the likelihood of where this actually is. And when we started pressing about the possibilities of going there, we were just basically told, it's a big desert, out there. If you go up there, you'll be shot. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And nobody will find you.
I have to ask you, Steve, what were these magnetic anomalies that were out there?
Barry will explain. He's done some research on that.
Okay.
When the bodies were found, there were reports that the magnetic anomaly, within the area, within the area, was that strong that it would create disturbances with technology, cell phones, cameras, video recorders. All of that would all stop working. And there was also a claim by some of the tomb raiders that two of the people who were responsible for finding this particular tomb are now dead because of this particular, whatever happened in this magnetic anomaly. So when Steve and I got to hear this, we then started to really start to take our investigation outside of the box of what we were being told, because in Peru you will be told 10 or 15 different stories, all from individuals who have some interest in a few pounds, a few dollars, and those stories will change all the time. But what we had was a series of facts which we could go back to science and say, what have we got, what can we find? And what we did find is one anomaly that appears near Nazca, just one. When we started to go looking for it, that's whenever we also seen from satellite images the white powder. So we started to find these connections together. So we do have a fair idea where, if this tomb turns out to be real, we do have a fair idea possibly where it actually is.
Interesting. Let's get back to those bodies for a moment that you guys were there to see. Steve, what did you think when you first saw these? Were you thinking extraterrestrial?
No, I wasn't. I was thinking hoax.
Okay.
It's Occam's razor, I call it as it is. Normally that is usually what I'm faced with. The first thing that I was shown didn't help, because they brought out in a chronological order of size. I mean, we didn't even know what we were going to be shown, but I was just so excited the fact that we might get the opportunity to see something. First one they brought out was it was only about 12 inches in size, and it was a stick type figure, and it had a fish's head. And I just looked at it, and I looked at these guys, and I just said, well, that's fake. And,
as you do.
And of course, it went very silent in the room, and I thought, oh God, what have I done? Maybe I'll be a bit reserved here.
Yeah, because it had fish's teeth. It looked like fish teeth too.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely a fish head on this, and it was manufactured. It was some type of doll, and it was made from some bones, of animal bones, but definitely a fish's head. And I looked up, and Barry went really quiet, and thinking, oh God, what's going to be the response? And the guys just kind of nodded and said, yeah, we believe it's fake as well. And at that point, I can only, we both realised very quickly we think kind of being tested, some type of test,
right?
Of course.
And you would, yeah.
And then after that, it was just a flow of stuff came. I mean, then the 24-inch bodies came out. These have got elongated heads, slightly enlarged eye sockets, again covered in diatomaceous earth, full bodies, and we were told one was female, one was male. I don't know. I mean, it could be simply because they're making that deductive theory, because one of them seems to have something in its abdomen area. They looking on X-rays, it looks like they're eggs. Right.
I was just going to ask you about that. They look like three misshapen eggs.
They do. Yeah. I mean, we can't confirm if those are eggs, but what we can say is that. They're slightly transparent, as if they were eggs, so they're not stones. There are 3 of them in a swollen abdomen area. The skin on these things were a little, I have to say, were a little bit like a reptile, a little bit.
Right, reptilian.
You could see it down the back of the bodies. Definitely little.
Right.
And then We measured them. We had looked at the X-rays. We looked at the scans. We scrutinised these. I mean, we were up close and personal with photography, with videoing. We were looking. I was determined to look for anything I could find where pieces of things had been glued together.
Right, any sign.
And to be honest, you know, these 24-inch ones, I couldn't call it. I said, well, you know, I mean, we said it doesn't look like it's got nasal cavity. It doesn't look like it's got lungs. How this thing would have breathed, is beyond me. It didn't seem. Barry picked out the fact that it doesn't seem to have ball joints in its arms and legs. So how would it have really moved around? It would have looked ridiculous, this thing moving around. Right. Its feet were three long fingers, 3 toes. And it didn't even look like it was capable of holding stability as if it walked. Mm-hmm. So it could have been. We don't really know if there were some type of dolls, but definitely manufactured with bones, of course, or if there were actually some type of really strange living creature. So it would all fall down to the DNA on those particular ones.
Okay, let's take a break here, guys. We'll be right back after this. The Tracie Austin Show would like to thank our sponsor, Zohar Stargate TV. And for more information about our sponsor, please visit zoharstargate.com.